been making. Maybe they're about to go on another another line of thought. Maybe they're gonna add to what they've been saying in another way. This is basically like a I don't even, what would you say, like something like they've been building up to this point in their writing, and now they're gonna take like another step in another direction, or they're gonna add more. Does that make sense? So what they're asking you for is the link point to explain the linking point between what comes before these lines, to explain the link point about what comes before these lines, and to explain the link in terms of what comes after these lines. So for example, the question here is explain the function of these lines in the development of the writer's argument. All right. So what you would do, as always, is you go to the line first. Yeah. Then you write down a quote relating to the main point the writer was making before this. Cool. So, so what was the writer talking about before these lines? Write down your quote for that. Then you explain the quote about the point he's been making, yeah? So like this, the writer has been speaking very charmingly towards society, etc. Now this person actually doesn't have a quote here. I don't know if I cut it out by accident. I think I might have cut it out by accident, my bad. But you would have a quote here, you explain this so that he's right, he's been speaking about this, yeah? Then you do the same thing, but for what point he's making now. So you write another quote about the point he's making now, and then you explain that. You say, for example, this quote here is pointless treasures, yeah? And the explanation is, we are unwilling to accept that music is bad, music is bad, and it needs to change. So pointless treasures, something that you think is good, so we're not willing to accept that it's bad, yeah? And then you would just explain this. So quote what he's been talking about before these lines, explain it. Quote what he's talking about now, explain it. And that's it basically. So the whole thing is, how does this act as a transition between those two, yeah? So this, you could say this, so this guy says the writer has been speaking charmingly towards society and the idea of change. He's been talking about how well we are willing to change. But here he's talking about how people won't change on this fact. They're not willing to give up music. And the passage is going to go on to speak about how bad music is and why we should change it. So it acts as a transition. People are willing to change, but they're not willing to change on this point. So it's a transition in the passage.